soar, use your own AI, we'll explore. Help the future hand in hand in this tech-driven wonderland.
Okay, I feel like one day this video will lead to some interesting reaction. But great to be here. We have a new office hours with amazing Masa and Compute Labs, and obviously me and Alex joining in. Let's do a quick round of intro. Albert, do you want to start and then go to Brendan and Colanthia?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, my name is Albert. I'm the founder and CEO of Compute Labs. So for Compute Labs, we're a RWA and infra project that we focus on the financializing AI, specifically the compute assets. And we want to establish the derivative markets for compute. And I'm currently based in LA, Pasadena. And yeah, great to be here today, and thanks for the invite.
Great to meet you, everyone. Brendan, I am the technical co-founder from Masa. At Masa, we're building a decentralized AI network where people can contribute data. We essentially allow anyone, anywhere in the world, builders, developers, to access any data through our decentralized data scraping network and distributed worker network. Really excited to be here. Been in the space for around 9 or 10 years, since 2013, and thrilled to meet everyone today.
Hey everyone, my name is Colanthia. I'm the business co-founder at Masa. Brendan already told you everything you need to know about Masa, so I'll probably share a fun fact. So Masa in Japanese means truth. And as a data company, I feel like truth and data align quite well. Super excited to be here, and thank you for the invite, Alex and Illia.
Awesome. Well, great to have both of your companies here. It's actually really interesting because I think we talked about both of your ideas one way or another on the previous office hours, and so and I've been actually discussing with some folks that from a compute perspective, the real world asset approach makes so much sense because that's actually where money are made right now on offering compute at like a pretty major premium, versus compute marketplaces on their own have a very limited kind of margin to capture, because you can always switch and use any one of those. And combining kind of both makes a lot of sense. And then on the data side, for sure, kind of how do we leverage the fact that we can very easily with crypto align a lot of people to scrape the internet and bring the data, especially the recent data, new updates, to be used for AI. I think it is a perfect application as well. So maybe kind of to turn around, I would love to hear what kind of questions you guys have and what's on your mind and kind of burning that we can discuss.
I'll probably start here. I promise that no one asked me to ask this question. So I know the origin story of NEAR was NEAR.AI before it became NEAR Protocol. We'd love to learn more about how you guys got started in 2017 and what brought you back to the AI strategy more recently.
Yeah, it was actually quite relevant to Masa, because what we were doing is we were building an AI developer back then, quite similar to what we try to do right now, but we needed a lot of data. We were annotating, like we wanted to have people simplify problem statements or draw sketches of user interfaces, or there was a couple of interesting data sets we were trying to collect, and it was very hard to pay them, because people who would do this kind of work would come from the geographies which are not necessarily the geographies that PayPal was supporting well, and so it was all kind of adventures, right? If you send money via PayPal and it says no, then there's no support, right? If you want to use Western Union back in 2017, you have to physically go to the to the branch and pay 15% or something like this. I don't remember now, but it's probably better now. But it was a complete disaster back then, right? And there was one person who said, "Hey guys, you can pay me in Bitcoin." And I was like, "Sure, that sounds great. Let me figure it out." And it's like we owed him like maybe $5, and the fee was more than that. But that's what what made us thinking about figuring out how to make it work better. And so data annotation was always one of the interesting use cases, which though actually it's interesting because I was Googling a little bit around with Masa, and it's not just data annotation, it's generally data contribution, right? That's something that Illia was promoting for quite a while now, right? So like, if I'm browsing Twitter, I actually don't know what is the license behind the tweets. When I tweet, I never read my terms of services, even though I said I did. So I don't know if it's within the legal boundaries of what I can do to contribute those tweets back to the network when I'm browsing Twitter. But if it is, right, then it makes sense for me. I mean, if I was getting a little bit of money per every tweet I doom scrolled, I would be quite rich right now. So it sounds like
I found a new business model for Alex.
Yeah. So it sounds similar to sort of Samasource, Mechanical Turk, those data labeling services. Yeah, they're really critical, right? I have a question though around that. Sort of when you're thinking of the data ecosystem as a whole and sort of how essential it is in Web3 AI or AI in general, where do you see data in the stack? Like, I think the way that we see it at Masa, I liken this to MetaMask the other day to someone, where in every AI application, you need data. And in every Web3 application, you need something like MetaMask. And MetaMask really kind of got its start by being Consensus's, seed project that blew up on Ethereum, still is the biggest wallet today. What are those key components of the AI stack that you see as like absolute must-haves? Like we have like strong conviction that data is obviously compute. Like these are all intuitive things that you can connect with easily. What else is there in the space that you see as critical, and what make up those building blocks to give birth to a flourishing AI economy? Like you're mentioning here, like data labeling. Data labeling is critical, like machine learning and computer vision. If you're not labeling images correctly, computer vision just doesn't work. And Samasource, Mechanical Turk really got off the ground in that way. So what are those building blocks? Would love to hear your kind of opinion and thoughts on where that's going.
Yeah, I think you named a few.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you named a few already. I'm trying to, if I can quickly pull it up. I've made this, I think like already over 6 months ago. It's just kind of like a pretty basic, I don't know if you can see it here, Web3 AI stack. And yeah, data is kind of at the bottom, feeding into everything else. And it has content, kind of reputation, data curation, crowdsourcing, and personal data. And so data curation, I actually had, like what Masa is kind of, I called it the future of creator economy, because actually, if you think of it, after the first step of your bootstrapping, where people are contributing tweets to Twitter and then somebody else puts them to your system, you can imagine that the eventual state that people just putting it to your system directly, right? And everybody else consumes it through AI from your system.
Yeah, almost like an archival history of all of that activity. Yeah. I can dig in later more, and
especially
for that.
Yeah, for journalism, for music, for video, yeah. And then you have obviously also compute and inference and training, financial models, unmanaged compute as well. And then you have like various applications. I mean, this is just like few topics, but AI agents is obviously a huge topic right now. AI governance, intelligence assets, which is like kind of going from just programmable assets. And then this was old slide, but kind of application building with AI as well, which is what we're working on at NEAR.AI.
Yeah, Illia, I'd love to kind of pull on a thread there. You say AI agent, and like so many people talk about AI agents. What does that mean to you? Like, I think everyone has this kind of like either nebulous or very specific definition of what that means. When you think of AI agents, in this context, like, what are you thinking about when you say that? I think it's a really,
I think
really interesting.
For individual agent, it's probably combination. Like it's some combination of let's just say code that has access to a language model, right? And so it's able to interact with some environment potentially like that is shared with a user or users and other agents, and able to do actions in this and use language model to pretty much understand what other people and agents are doing and saying, as well as what happens in the environment. To like make it more concrete, what we're working on NEAR.AI developer side, right? We have an agent that talks to the user to understand what they're trying to build and writes a specification, right? Mm-hmm. So its environment is chat and specification. Then we have another agent which looks at specification and tries to build the smart contract, and then still may go back to user and like make sure that some of the like trade-offs are valid. And so you can have you can almost imagine a group chat with your dev team where all of them are trying to figure out what you want to be built and then building it and kind of showing you their progress. You have a designer as well join out. But under these, the way it works is, all of this agent is just some Python or whatever code that interacts with the environment and has a language model.
Amazing. On NEAR at the moment, like what are the best like inference infrastructure projects and LLM sort of infrastructure projects that are currently on NEAR right now, where you can use that as your base agent sort of building block to then wrap it in Python to give you that user interface? And are you seeing anyone using it for like agents, not just for end user interaction, but for kind of internal processing? I'll give you an example. We scrape a lot of volatile web data. So all of your tags on websites like HackerNoon and these pages like change a lot. They're relatively ephemeral, and one day you can have a scraper that passes data out that works, and the next day your pipeline could break. You've got to constantly monitor. We've been fine-tuning Llama 3 to pass specifically this volatile data into structured JSON. So in a way, it's an agent that's doing pipeline work for the data itself. Can do a similar thing to tweets, like adding metadata to tweets and doing that like second order layer of like processing or post scrape processing. We're quite excited about like what that can do. There's limitations like latency, cost can be a problem, tokens per minute throughput and things like that. And I think there's a lot of work to be done there to get it to scale, but quite exciting what it can do to data pipeline infrastructure. Are you seeing any of that being built in NEAR right now? And would love to kind of see if there's any other use cases for agents outside of like end user interaction that you're seeing growing. And that's probably all of my questions for a bit. Otherwise, I'm going to hog the mic.
Yeah, I mean, there's like few components here. One is the like kind of AI inference infrastructure, which we can dive into. But we are actually, working with a few projects that are coming in right now into the ecosystem, as well as working on something we call AI inference router, which is a way for then applications to actually plug into this and get routed to whoever provides inference and compute. And so,
yeah,
I mean, we're planning to showcase that, as well as then it should serve as a plugin for data providers and other kind of Web3 foundational models, etc., who can actually plug into one system. So it's a little bit early, but like we'll talk about that more in coming weeks.
Yeah. Have you used OpenRoute as a great tool? Sounds similar to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think OpenRoute solves a little bit different problem, but yeah, like we try to think how can we bring all of the projects that are building right now around NEAR in the AI ecosystem? How do we like actually allows them to compose with each other in a way that also then serves end user or end application like in an easy way.
Yeah,
like your sorry, go on, Albert.
Yeah, I was just like having a question for Brandon sort of on Masa, because I know like scale AI pretty well, and I assume you guys are sort of like doing what they're doing in Web3, right? Are you guys like handling the like data collection or only the data labeling?
Yeah, for us, we've really focused on the data collection and scraping. So Alex sort of picked up on an interesting point here about tweet data. So we actually, being very transparent, we reverse engineered Twitter's front-end API, the GraphQL API. As a Twitter worker on our network, you can bring your Twitter credentials, you can add them to a node. It will log you in, save a session cookie on your machine or your instance. And then we route through a worker layer, an akka framework requests, HTTP requests from our API that get fulfilled by those workers. There's an element of consensus around the scrapes. So we've really focused on unlocking the Twitter data that's typically like not available through the Twitter API, or if it is available, you've got to spend a huge amount of money. Like it's $42,000 a month just to be able to get an endpoint that gives you followers. And right now we do it for free for everyone. So you can get any data you want from Twitter completely for free right now. I call it the "fuck you Elon" product because he completely screwed up the the Twitter API. Very tongue in cheek, but it's memorable for everyone. And we then do web scrape data, Discord, Reddit. Basically anything you see on the public web, you would get through a platform like Appify. You can get through Masa protocol for free. We're then building on the back end more of like the processing pipeline infrastructure, where I have high conviction that instead of investing heavily in data pipelines that transform data using static code, using LLMs to do that, and the pace at which people like you are probably bringing compute to the market and other networks, there's going to be so much latent unused compute out there that you can almost run background jobs on data sets to provide this enrichment layer on top. So that's something downstream we're adding to as we get this big corpus of data that's kind of historical based on what people are scraping. So we have two things. We store the data that is scraped by request. There's some really interesting stuff there that you can see, like what is most valuable kind of surfaces from that data, because it's what people are querying the most. And you can go deep there. And then we're also going to run batch jobs to build data sets in our backend and store them on something like OG Labs or Space and Time, something like that, as sort of permanent storage. So yeah, focusing on the data scraping.
Got you. And like for the data, what type of data do you guys support now? Like only text or also like video and audio at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. Video and audio we cut out of our scraper just because of the size of the data, and storing it was becoming an issue. But it's a relatively easy change to add it back in. So we haven't really done much computer vision stuff. We've been really focused primarily on the text-based data, because most of the agents we're seeing, like Illia was saying, are user-facing agents that are looking for text either to fine-tune or go into RAG, or in certain cases where people have large budgets, they want to train or retrain a base model. Like Spectral have done this. Spectral have retrained a base model on GitHub data, specific to smart contracts. So you have a really great agent that's able to give a lot of detail on smart contract syntax, as opposed to it sort of out of the box.
And from like a business perspective, what we've been looking for and very luckily be able to get as one of the first decentralized AI data product out there is to find what we call data product market fit. So think of it as trying to reach equilibrium between the demand side and the supply side. We need to basically learn and iterate for our developers, specifically AI application and AI agent developers, to understand their use case. And then we can rapidly ask our network of validators and node workers to spin up new data scrapers. So far, we find two use cases to be the most prevalent. The first is financial, no surprise there. Everyone's trying to use AI agent to capture trading signal, etc. And then the second one is social. We have seen a huge wave of AI companions, AI boyfriends, and AI girlfriends emerging right now. Loneliness is one of the biggest problems facing Millennial and Gen Z right now, and it is directly reflected in the use case. So based on those two leading categories of use cases, we started to develop different kind of data scrapers. Social, web data are the most popular amongst them. So that's what's informing our roadmap at the moment.
Understood. Yeah, because I mean, it's quite interesting because I used to work for a project called Decentralizing. We're a AI agent network that we automate the entire like workflow for users in crypto. For instance, like I think we recently launched a partnership with Galaxy that like because on Galaxy there are a lot of users trying to do like XYZ to farm for the airdrop or to attend the campaigns, right? And AI agent could be a really good way for them to automate the process and just to complete all the stuff with one click. And I'm just running.
Are you saying you're pretty much automating what people are paying for to do user engagement? You're automating it with AI and replacing user engagement with AI?
Yes, that will be one of the use case like we explore. Because so we started as a AI NPC solution for gaming, but our tech stack is around like NLP, right? And how to interact from a virtual human being to human. And then we figure like with such a technology, what can we do to automate the workflow, specifically in crypto? And one use case we found is just, like there are a lot of people manually doing XYZ, like tag their Twitter, do some transfer and all that. And we're essentially having this like infinity canvas sort of thing for users to DIY, customize their workflow, and in the meantime to have the AI agent to like just, I guess, complete them with one click, which is super cool, I guess. But so for that type of AI agent, do you foresee any synergy between like you guys and them?
Yeah, we've been through like a bit of a journey with some of this verification on our way to realizing that data for AI consumption was really where the best fit in the market is today. Like data is a pretty unsexy thing. Like no one typically, unless you're a real nerd, gets super excited about data. But degenning, everybody loves degenning. So our first kind of initial use case was verifying degen behavior from social. Like Twitter followers is a good example. Like, are you following XYZ account? Yeah, we're able to provide verification for that through the platform. So an agent would be able to understand, does Illia follow Masa or does he follow NEAR, and get a response back and determine whether or not Illia is qualified for that sort of event or something. So I believe there are ways in which reasoning can come from LLMs using data of this type and sort of build more complex decision trees that essentially unlock the use case that you're describing. Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Well, I think there's even more, right? Like you're bringing on, for example, Twitter data, which you can use to make decisions on then other platforms on chain as well. And so that's given like Twitter is probably the news feed of crypto. You can actually have decisions made based on that. So I think like that's kind of what we're thinking about. Like, how do we plug in kind of the some of the data providers into as a context that then other be that agents or users can use directly in their LLMs. Make it almost like set a middleware that augments your query or your context as you're making decisions.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Go on, Claudia. Sorry.
I was going to say, no surprise here. Right after Twitter, we actually developed additional data scrapers supporting Discord and Telegram data. For example, if NEAR users want to, capture trading signal of all the tokens available on NEAR, where they would go to. First of all, they would go check a few big whale accounts on Twitter. Secondly, they'll probably go to their favorite communities on Telegram, seeing what kind of signal calls are available on Telegram. That's exactly what we can provide as a data platform. What we can do is really give you real-time structure text data based on Telegram group chat history, as well as Discords. So combined, once you have the big three, Discord, Telegram, Twitter, you almost get a pretty complete picture when it comes to the social sentiment related to specific token trading.
Yeah, I just want to add something to what Illia was saying just now about this kind of what I'm almost hearing is like a reasoning framework. So we've got like inference, and there's almost this like reasoning framework built on top of LLMs. I think it's for a lot of people in the Web3 space, there's this vision of almost autonomous behavior within the Web3 stack constrained by a rule set or parameters that allow for certain actions to take place in a semi-autonomous or fully autonomous way. I think that this discourse and thought process leads to that outcome incrementally, and opens up like a lot of interesting use cases for, I'll give you an example. We dog food our own Discord scraper internally, where we will scrape user feedback, user testing groups in Discord, and it will synthesize and output feature requests, prioritize them for us, add them into like a ticket backlog in GitHub. Not that we're trying to replace people in the organization, but the velocity you now get in terms of taking raw data, refining it, and then making it actionable in our pipeline just increases like engineering and product discovery velocity where you couldn't do this before. So it's not just use cases where you're degenning, it's like, how can I introduce both efficiency and observability into my existing processes so as I can extract more insights? And imagine taking that one step further. You're collecting information, you're observing it, and then you're doing reduction through reasoning to understand, okay, these are the outcomes I want to pursue because of XYZ heuristic. You start building up like a very, very powerful engine, and like, tie that together with economic incentives where you can program your incentive model on top of that layer. You can really bring together those actors to make, favorable outcomes. I strongly, strongly believe.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, there's definitely a lot to develop here. Maybe switching gears, Albert. I mean, you mentioned kind of the project you were before, right? But now with Compute Labs, you're working more on kind of the base level quantization of compute and kind of bringing forward the value of the future. I guess, how are you guys seeing the kind of the opportunity with all the rollout, right? I mean, like Amazon is building, 25 new data centers, GPUs. How do you see this onboarding looking, and how do we as crypto actually participate in that game more effectively?
Well, I guess like your second part, how we can participate, that's exactly what we're trying to achieve here, or like enable investors to do, especially like institutional investors and retails, right? Because currently at the market, there's no financial product that provide a direct exposure to like compute asset, underlying asset. There's NVIDIA stocks, there are AI related tokens, and you might also invest in AI company from early stage. But other than that, like there's no direct exposure, which is why we're thinking we want to focus on the financialization of this entire compute assets, because we both know compute is going to be the currency of the future. And when we're talking about the financialization or derivatives, they're going to be like index, ETF, perpetual and staking lending sort of things. And we feel like that market will be huge. But of course, the foundation or the first step will be that we have to have this on-chain representation, or like how we can transfer the ownership of that compute, because physically it's just not feasible to transfer compute using just regular secondary marketplace. Since it's heavy, it's hard to be shipped and also easy to be broken, which is why we feel like using blockchain technology to build this gap for compute as an underlying asset makes a lot of sense. And that's how we started. And going back to like, I guess AWS or more Web2 marketplace for compute versus Web3, I guess I also want to talk to you about this. Is like currently, I think the demand and supply situation from both worlds have a complete different situation, right? In Web2, the demand is much higher than the supply for the Web2 cloud compute network. However, in Web3, I think like IONET, they just launched their token today, right? For those decentralized compute marketplace, I would say due to the physical limitation and all the network latency, the actual demand there is limited, fairly limited. And what's your opinion on like how the Web3 components can develop long term in a way that the demand there will be more actual and like there's gonna be a sustainable economy there.
Yeah, I think there's a the problem is that for the use cases that exist today that require a massive number of GPUs, you do need them to be with the InfiniBand and whatnot, right? So it's one of the there are several scenarios where the demand will go up. One of them is presumably you can do inference without, like that's a viable scenario to do inference quickly on machines that do not have that quick of an interconnect. Especially, it's one thing to have inference that you want, like if you want to be communicating with the, in real time, you probably want something with a very low latency, high throughput. But in many cases, you want to do batch inference jobs, then you don't care, about latency, you care about throughput. So in this case, I think decentralized networks already have an advantage. And I think another one is I'm still very hopeful that there is going to be a breakthrough that will allow training with very high latency. Then, of course, the question will be, can a decentralized network provide GPUs cheaper on a per flop basis, right? Ignoring the network and the bandwidth. That is something I don't know if it, if it's viable. I don't know, like, what's the comparison between the price per flop on a decentralized network versus, just getting H100s at like $2 a piece.
Yeah, I mean, like 100%. Current limitation sort of just limit the usage for Web3 components more to the AI inferencing. For AI training, due to the infinite band and all that, it's just not feasible at the moment.
Yeah, we should invest more into. Yeah, go ahead, Ilya.
No, just to mention, like on where actually inferencing may be useful at the training time, like a kind of background bandwidth inferencing is synthetic data generation, right? Because I think we'll see a pretty sizable transition for training new models on synthetic data that's specifically generated. That's kind of from potentially smarter models distilled into smaller models. Or just in general, kind of generating distributions of data that are useful. And for that, you need massive batch of inference. You don't care about latency at all, and you just need like as much compute as possible. So I think that's probably one of the interesting use cases in the shorter term, if we can coordinate all those devices.
Yeah, 100%.
It's something we've seen initial green shoot interest on, is this notion of like enrichment or synthetic data sets using not the JSON model we have, but a like an enrichment model where natural language conversations from things like YouTube, Reddit, conversational text is being enriched by another protocol to create better conversational AI. Essentially doing what GPT-4o did to their most recent release, right? Using all of the conversational data from all of our prompts to fine-tune the model so as it had what felt like a more natural prose or vocabulary with what we speak, the way we speak in everyday life. And they don't care about latency. They very much care about price. And we've recently worked on a coordination engine that allows you to imagine spawning a set of workers for an LLM that scales horizontally and allows you to retain the full sort of image of your LLM instance, but spread work across multiple devices with lower concerns for latency. So you end up using a single LLM instance, but you can run it over multiple workers that are multiple GPUs. Actually we use libpeer-to-peer, which is like the Filecoin system to spawn those workers with an Akka framework, which is kind of interesting implementation, a bit like Kubernetes for decentralized LLMs. And I think that we'll start to see better inference infrastructure, better infrastructure for LLMs. I don't think ours is a final solution. I think it's like an initial solution for this. That then allows for higher throughput batch processing And we're looking to collaborate with people like Akash. Would love to see if there's an opportunity to collaborate here to see how that scales and does it work for some of these early, synthetic data set enrichment batch jobs. Yeah, it's interesting.
%. And also, I guess like another question for you guys is, let's say currently there's a investment opportunity in front of you that can provide a stable 20 to 30, even 40% of yield per year. And essentially you will be just putting money and purchasing a GPU yourself that will be custodian and also physically managed by Compute Labs or like by a professional team to generate yields, right? Like to rent it out to AI companies from Web2. Will you consider that as a really good investment opportunity yourself?
As an ex-miner and spending years early on mining, the miner degen on me wants like a pool switching equivalent for GPUs. We're investing in some of our own hardware at Masa to be able to run our own compute just for R&D, and to be able to have almost like a mining pool switching engine where you're always mining the most profitable algo back in the day to basically provisioning your hardware in the most profitable like use case. Sounds interesting. And like, I'm speaking from someone that can technically set this hardware up, but co-located, hosted miners became a massive thing. They still are a massive thing. It feels like it's inevitable that's the case. Like, we are going to allow scrapers to be loaded onto an Android device. So you'll download an Android app. You'll just hit like a connect button, enter any credentials, and then it's almost like tethering to the network with your phone. And you can essentially monetize the bandwidth on your device. People want that really quick one-click solution, right, to participate in this economy.
Yeah. I think both Compute Labs and Masa are trying to make sure that every user of the internet or off the internet will be able to financially benefit from AI, right? Like, I'm probably the only non-technical founder on this call right now. I don't know how to set up a hardware, nor do I know how to run a very technical node. But in the not so far future, Compute Labs will be able to allow me this opportunity to invest in like a piece of hardware, rent it out, and then you'll be able to manage it on my behalf, and I can generate 20 to 40% yield. That sounds pretty amazing to me. I'll probably only have one request, which is to make the yield dynamic if it's possible, because given the speed of AI development, I want to see yield not capped at 40%.
Yeah, and we're actually also thinking about like developing this yield volatility. So another derivative on the yield itself. And we truly believe that there's going to be a lot of speculation room for that. And just like what Brendan said, I think like same for Compute Labs. Basically, the end goal for us is also going forward, any user who like can just go on their phone and like maybe go to their wallet, and after a few clicks, they can purchase the actual run rate GPU, a hardware that's like installed in a physical world, but they can have this NFT serving as owner proof and also the yielding token, right? I guess like that's going to be the future we're aiming for here.
Yeah, we're actually literally just brainstorming this at Consensus a couple of weeks ago. Both Brent and I dabbled in the fintech world, and in the fintech world, there's a lot of wallets that gain massive adoption because they were pre-installed on hardware or phones. For example, in India, Reliance Jio is such a conglomerate that promoted Paytm amongst other wallets. What if in the future, every single like Android phone out there will be able to automatically scrape data, contribute data plan, or will be able to achieve one click or two click renting a compute resource? That would be pretty amazing. And I think the future is actually not that far away.
So NEAR actually has an application, Kaiching, which is pre-installed on over 8 billion phones already, as pretty much on Xiaomi and Oppo phones. And so that is the part. They actually are expanding this into so-called locally stored data protocol, which allows to kind of run AI on their device, but they have a wallet pretty much for every user. They have all of that integrated. And so that is an opportunity to integrate into that system.
Amazing. We would love to integrate. That sounds exactly what we have envisioned and planned for.
We'll be pursuing that before Apple's announcement yesterday.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like,
That's cool.
what's your thought on the partnership between Apple and OpenAI? I saw Elon was like on Twitter yesterday saying like the privacy concern and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I got strong thoughts. What I always do about these things. Yeah, I have really strong thoughts. I mean, it's all just deals through the back door, right? Like, I think it comes down to I don't know. I'm going to pause. I'm going to let somebody else go first. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole here because I will go down a rabbit hole.
But in this particular case, you are on the Elon side.
Yes, I am. Yes, personally, I am. Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see an interesting convergence, right? And I mean, everybody was expecting that announcement too. That although a bunch of people were telling me like, no, OpenAI. Apple has developed all this AI stuff, but I mean, and they do have some on-device things that's built, but at the end, yeah, it seems like they're just integrated. I mean, I think realistically, the operating system of the future will have AI pretty much as part of the experience layer. And so the question is, how that's done, who is it powered on, and who is getting all the data, right? And so, I mean, that's why, like, I actually been talking about edge intelligence for over a year now, kind of focused on how do we bring models on device, how do we ensure that they can be as smart as possible, leveraging your local data, your kind of local context, and then potentially even becoming the way you engage with experiences and interfaces going forward, right? Because if you can imagine this model starting to write code, well, they can actually just build interface for any experience you want, right? Maybe not on the fly, but you can then share those experiences not as applications, but actually as a recipe that you can change yourself. And so I think like we see that is starting to happen, except obviously as a locked platform, right? There's a benefit of them kind of controlling it and not also opening it up to other developers. So, and then, I mean, all the privacy concerns for sure will just keep accelerating from here.
Yeah, I think a lot of the genesis for opinions yesterday is that we don't know, right? Like the system can't be trusted right now, and there's enough evidence to say that it can't be trusted because of past behavior. And I think it opens up a lot of philosophical questions as to, we're always talking in Web3, whether it be like ZK proofs doing XYZ for like ML or lots and lots of solutions and how they can be applied. But it's all well and good us talking about that within Web3 when we really need to have some of these bigger organizations adopting some of this. And I just don't ever see that happening. And it's because we as users don't put enough pressure and demand on these organizations to change their behavior. And it's because the economics don't work. So we have two options. We go down the river with this kind of thing, or we push back and we fight. And I certainly want to be fighting. I think this might be one of the first times where I reconsider getting an iPhone for the last 8 years. Much to my wife's chagrin, she'll see green messages from me, not blue messages. And we have to build a different system. Like we have to continue building these different systems, and quantized models like Illia's talking about for like edge devices are very, very interesting. Like there's a huge, boat of open source research that goes into quantized models that could do a lot. I haven't seen a huge amount of projects using quantized models in Web3, or am I missing those projects? Who out there is using quantized models instead of like Llama 3 or another kind of Hugging Face model? Is there anyone?
Well, those are quantized in many cases, right?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. But who's specifically using those in the Web3 space? The really lightweight ones that have high performance for edge devices.
Few projects I've seen who are using on edge models, and through that accessing a lot more data on a personal device. I mean, they're not yet like, live, but they're at seed stage, pretty much developing their prototypes.
It's
No,
worth
so I
mentioning
think
that a lot of things. I think emphasis, like the emphasis that you, Ilya, made was that they do some things on device, but I think they do majority of the things on device and minority through OpenAI, which is worth mentioning.
It is, yeah, and that asks explicitly actually to go to OpenAI,
Yeah.
right? So
yeah,
at least, like,
it's
from
different
privacy
from
perspective,
hypothetical Microsoft where it is, where all your data is just leaving your machine constantly. Yeah, and it's the same. I think it's still the same argument about iPhone versus Android. That on Android by default, like just like even going to the onboarding sequence where where every single control is designed in a way for you to give permission to send your data without understanding it. And I think for quite a while still Apple will be, unfortunately, the choice to make.
yeah, for context, Alex and I at some point broke Android. Well, we worked around Android in such a way that people felt like they're approving one thing and actually approved a bunch of other permissions they haven't seen.
Yeah.
That was not intended behavior, and we filed it as an issue. It took 3 years for them to fix it, or 4.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm $5,000 richer.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I've done data collection from Android with consented permissions that give you very detailed information on people to build credit models in the past. Yeah. I
That's
think
really cool. Yeah, and I guess just one more comment regarding like what Brandon just said. I feel like the AI landscape is just becoming, especially in Web2, it's becoming more and more oligarchy a little bit. That like a few big companies, they're controlling all the stuff, especially now with a partnership between Apple and OpenAI, right?
Yeah. I think that's part of the problem, right?
Yeah.
That you have to use Android or an iPhone. There's no way to
Yes,
live in
exactly.
2024 without having one of the two, right? So it's yeah.
Yeah, we really see ourselves, where the entire human race, at the crossroads of centralized AI versus decentralized AI at this specific point in time. The good thing is that we are building in parallel, although right now centralized AI players have way too much resources compared to what we're building collectively. But still, we have the first opportunity in human history to be able to build in parallel with centralized players and hopefully surpass them at some point.
Yeah. We're definitely living in an exciting time.
I think that kind of, for me, shines this bright light on like, what are we all doing here? Like, it's not just the why decentralized AI, which for many of us, I think seems intuitive and obvious. It's creating equal opportunity, aligning incentives around economic models that you can program to bring the right players together to coordinate and act in a way that's good for the entire system, not just one centralized player. And I think that where we are in the cycle, where Bitcoin found its fit for where it is now, store of money, store of value, we need to collectively, as an entire ecosystem building in decentralized AI, like nail what that single very memorable value proposition is for decentralized AI and like what the why is. Ethereum did it with like the world computer, even if we can judge with hindsight whether that came to pass or not. NEAR's doing it with what you guys are doing with sort of more scalable layer one solutions. But like, what is this particular one single thing that harmonizes the entire like AI Web3 space, that connects with people to make people realize that this is where they should be? I don't know if I've seen that specific thing, unless you guys have.
describe it. Yeah, I describe it as user-owned AI because, like, what the difference you want is it's not company, trying to generate more revenue, right? It's actually focused on the user and their success, their needs, their financial well-being, and well-being more broadly. And so that's kind of the flip we want to make. And it's not like decentralization there is the tool, right? Decentralization always is a tool. But
do people
like,
you speak to
make them successful?
Yeah, do people you speak to outside of AI care about that?
I think if you explain it, hey, like, do you want something that makes, big company more money, or do you want something that makes you more successful? I think that seems to resonate. I think on its own, maybe it's not like immediately obvious, but so is internet computer. Let's be clear that most people don't.
Absolutely.
The internet computer meme either.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I really love the framing of user-owned AI. By the way, Illia, we have a new slogan we have yet to debut. It's called Fair AI, powered by the people, which is exactly to your point, right? User-owned AI. Users should be the owner of their own data, their own resources, their own compute, their own bandwidth, as they financially benefit from the AI boom. I think with anything else in Web3, decentralization and power of the community is always going to be the philosophical angle of all of our new innovations.
Yeah, and I think there's been a challenge actually. It's always been a challenge in Web3 that if you lead with philosophy, you lose a lot of people, right? It's a minority thing. And so that's why I think the economics is so important, right? Versus if you lead with economics, like, hey, you can benefit in this way, you can access something that you couldn't access, right? Which is, I'm coming from Ukraine, accessing dollars is one of the very important things that everybody understands. So I think it's, we're trying to have this philosophical name, but at the end it's going to be like, hey, here's the opportunity you can get, right? And here, you want to benefit from the future of compute. Well, Compute Labs offering you something, and it's like it's only possible to build on Web3 because you need to coordinate all of this disparate resources and efforts. You want to benefit from your bandwidth pretty much sitting at home in the background. Well, you can use Masa. So I think that's like at the end it's going to be the actual driver for adoption. And I call it like every revolution starts with economy and gets described about values. Like, America wanted freedom, but actually they didn't want to pay taxes to UK, right? So like it started as economy, and they were like, yeah, we want, that they plastered.
That's a good example. So that's a good example. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I like that.
Everything ends with the IRS in the US, but 100% I deeply resonate with that. I grew up in Asia, and even within the Masa community, we have now building our community in the past 2 years and a half. The most active community members actually come from Southeast Asia, come from Nigeria, come from the CIS region instead of America or Western Europe, etc. It's because they see immediate value in what we're giving as token rewards to participate in our network. $1 is probably only 1/5 of my coffee this morning in New York, but could mean a lot more to a lot of people elsewhere.
Yeah, I often speak about that, like the cost of Anthropic or GPT-4 at $20 a month. But that's still a huge hurdle for a lot of people. And it's only that price because we're giving them their data. We're giving those companies our data in the prompts. If we weren't giving them that data, it'd be even more expensive for those subscriptions. So we get access to a lower price because we're feeding the model as well, kind of a slave to the system in a way. And I think that opportunity to give fair access to free AI is something we can really do using these economic models, especially to like prevent more inequality happening around this particularly like high moving, fast moving space where you could very easily leave people behind.
Yeah, I feel like if from that perspective, I think Masa is doing a really amazing job of, because like if we're thinking about it, the more data those AI companies they have, the higher their technology barrier will be, so that they can charge more for their subscription. So we definitely need you guys to like basically decentralize all the data, because otherwise it's just gonna get more and more.
Yeah, all data anywhere in the world for anyone.
That's cool. Love it. Yeah. I just have one last question from me, and this is for mostly Alex and Illia, I guess. So I have been talking to NEAR team about the chain signature recently, and I really love the idea, and it's quite exciting. I think at least it fit the I mean, our NFT or our compute-backed NFT really well. The concept that where like no matter which chain you're from, you can easily trade the asset without even signing a signature. That's super cool. But I'm more curious about like hearing from you guys. What do you think will be the most like applicable or make sense use cases for chain signature in crypto nowadays?
I mean, there's a whole, like, already a bunch of people building on top of this tech, a whole set of different use cases. I mean, it starts with wallets, right? The reality is a number of wallets in their ecosystem already, either on testnet or in case of hot on mainnet, provide that experience where you log in, you get a NEAR account, but then you can go and use, for example, Base and applications on Base, right? And there is a mapped account, so-called remote account that you're controlling, but you're interacting from your NEAR account. But as this goes further, right, you can now have DAOs, for example, that can facilitate various efforts across chains. You can have smart contracts that are trading, that are moving assets around. We're also exploring this idea we call omni token, where it's pretty much one token that exists on every chain at once, right? And so pretty much the kind of root of it is on NEAR. It deploys then ERC20s, SPL, even BRC20 on Bitcoin, marks a Satoshi there with information. And now you can transact there, but it's the total supply is kind of interlinked between all of these chains. And importantly, you can actually transfer between chains kind of with functionality of that chain plus like 10 seconds or something. And so you can actually now actually have that format where if you're on one chain, I give you my base colon illiadragon.eth, you can just send to that address, not caring which chain you're on. And so I think like that's kind of the experience we're getting into. And obviously there's DEXs, there's lending protocols, there's people who are using it for example, issuance of cards, because they want to allow users to deposit assets on every chain, and then you can pay with a card everywhere. So it's really kind of like a new piece of tech, new building block in the Web3 that really kind of ties the blockchains together and allows to have this kind of composability that I would say didn't exist before between different chains.
Yeah, I think like all the use cases you mentioned make sense. Any AI specific use case or scenario off your top?
Yeah, I mean, same for like, let's say AI agents that want to interact across chains, right? That's something that people are already exploring, kind of, I mean, from payments to actual interactions to transaction, right? Like right now, if you're an AI agent, you need to implement all of the chains that you want to interact on. You need RPCs, you need gas fees management and all of them, right? Versus just go through your NEAR account and pay fees in one place, and it all gets managed by the underlying stack. Same for as we kind of rolling out some of the inference endpoint. Ideally, you'll be able to fetch all data from all the related chains, and then if you want to actually, for example, Minbase has this natural language transaction process, right? Where you just say like swap, but also build me a portfolio of top tokens across all chains, and buy $100 worth of it, right? You can imagine pretty much like a whole set of transactions across different chains that get spawned for that to happen. So I mean, it is more of a like execution infrastructure, not like but AI can plug into that.
Yeah, 100%. I really like the gas feature for a chain signature that you will just automatically convert the gas token for you. Super cool.
Yeah, well, you kind of need that, otherwise it's not very abstracted if you need to know the implementation details of the chain.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I think we're almost at time, so I want to thank you guys for coming for the discussion. Hopefully this was helpful. I'm really excited kind of working with all of you and seeing some of these opportunities for end users coming in real life.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much for having us.